Burkina Faso has just made a move that is sending waves of excitement and hope all across the African continent. In a bold and heartwarming decision, the government of Burkina Faso has officially removed visa requirements for all Africans. Yes, you read that right. From now on, anyone from any African country can enter Burkina Faso without having to go through the complicated and often expensive visa process. This is not just a policy change. It feels like a door swinging wide open. For so long, borders within Africa have been drawn with invisible walls of paperwork, fees, and waiting times that have separated brothers and sisters, neighbors and friends. But now, Burkina Faso is saying, you are welcome here. Come as you are. There's something deeply emotional about this decision. It's more than travel. It's about unity. It's about Africans being able to move freely through African lands, to visit family, build businesses, experience cultures, and strengthen bonds without the stress of red tape hanging over them. It's about healing the fractures left behind by colonial lines and showing what true Pan-African solidarity can look like. Imagine a young entrepreneur from Ghana who has been dreaming of expanding their handmade crafts into new markets. Before, the visa process might have drained their energy and their wallet, making the dream feel out of reach. But now, they can simply pack their bags, hop on a bus or a flight, and arrive in Burkina Faso ready to chase opportunities and connect with new people. Or think about the student from Senegal who has always been curious about the traditions, music, and art of Burkina Faso. They no longer need to worry about paperwork delays or rejection letters. They can just go with curiosity as their only passport. These human stories are the real heartbeat of this announcement. Burkina Faso is often seen as a quiet and humble country in the heart of West Africa. But with this decision, it's sending a loud message across the continent. Africa belongs to Africans. In that message, it resonates. It sparks something inside. It makes you pause and breathe and realize that the idea of African unity isn't just a dream written on paper. It's something that can be lived, something that can start with real actions like this. Many people are reacting to this news with pure joy. On social media, the excitement is almost electric. You can feel the pride, the hope, and the sense of possibility in the comments. People are calling it historic. Others are sharing plans to visit, reconnect with family they haven't seen in years, or explore opportunities in Burkina Faso's growing cultural and creative scenes. It's like a wave of optimism is rolling through the continent. Of course, this move is also deeply symbolic. It sends a clear message to other African nations. The future is in collaboration, not isolation. While some countries are still tightening their borders, Burkina Faso is choosing trust. It's choosing openness. It's choosing to believe in the strength of African people when they are united instead of divided by unnecessary barriers. There's something powerful in that choice. It shows courage. It shows vision. And it shows heart. Because at the core of it, this is a gesture of love. Love for Africa. Love for its people. Love for the idea that we are stronger together than apart. Economically, this could be a major turning point too. Easier movement means more trade, more tourism, more cultural exchange. Local businesses could see new energy and growth as visitors from all over Africa come to explore, invest, and collaborate. Markets could become more vibrant, music festivals more diverse, and classrooms more international. It's the kind of spark that can ignite growth from the inside out. Culturally, it opens up endless possibilities. Imagine artists from Kenya, dancers from Nigeria, filmmakers from South Africa, and writers from Egypt, all gathering in Ouagadougou to share their talents, ideas, and dreams. Imagine the creative collisions and the magic that could come from people meeting freely, without borders in the way. That kind of cross-pollination can change how people see themselves, not just as citizens of their own countries, but as citizens of Africa. There's also something beautifully simple about the human moments this could create. Friends surprising each other with visits, families reuniting across borders. Love stories beginning between people who might never have met otherwise. These are the quiet, personal revolutions that come when travel becomes easy. When the world, or at least the continent, opens its arms. And let's be honest, It's refreshing. In a world that often seems to be closing doors and building walls, seeing a country swing its doors wide open feels rare. It feels brave. It gives people hope that things can be different, that borders don't always have to be barriers, and that Africa can choose its own path forward, one built on trust, togetherness, and shared dreams. Burkina Faso is now standing as a symbol of what that path might look like. A place where Africans are not strangers, but welcomed guests. A place that sees the richness of the continent not as something to be kept out, something to be embraced, shared, and celebrated. The emotional weight of this moment can't really be measured. It's not just about visas or travel documents. It's about dignity. It's about finally treating fellow Africans as family, not foreigners. That shift in attitude could ripple far beyond Burkina Faso's borders, inspiring other nations to rethink their own policies and to imagine what a united Africa could achieve. For many young Africans, this news feels like a spark of the future they've always dreamed of. A future where the borders that once separated us become bridges that connect us. A future where opportunities flow as freely as ideas. And where identity is shaped by shared heritage rather than divided by paperwork. When Burkina Faso announced that it was scrapping visa requirements for all Africans, something profound stirred across the continent. It wasn't just a policy change scribbled on official documents, it felt like a door swinging wide open. As if invisible borders that had silently divided people were suddenly dissolving into the wind. For many, this bold step symbolized the long-dreamed vision of Pan-African unity. Something that has lingered in the hearts of generations, yet always seemed just a little out of reach. People everywhere began to talk about it. Not as distant political news, but as if it were something personal. Because in many ways, it is. Families long separated by red tape and long, exhausting visa processes could now see the possibility of embracing each other again without the shadow of bureaucracy looming overhead. Friends who grew up together but ended up in different corners of Africa could plan to reunite. Without the weight of travel documents pulling them down, the announcement whispered a single word across the continent. Asterisk, welcome asterisk. This newfound freedom of movement carries with it a warmth that goes far beyond airports and passport stamps. It reminds people that Africa is, and has always been, a shared Homa tapestry of cultures, stories, and dreams bound together by history, resilience, and hope. The idea that a young artist in Dakar can now hop on a bus and explore the vibrant streets of Ouagadougou without hurdles is electrifying. Or that a student from Nairobi might now walk the bustling markets of Bobo Dioulasso and feel like they belong, simply because they do. It's not just travel. It's connection. It's belonging. For decades, borders on this continent have acted like invisible walls. It's often inherited from a colonial past that cut through communities and carved nations out of shared lands. Those borders created distance where once there had been kinship, and they made neighbors into foreigners. Burkina Faso's moved chips away at those artificial walls, inviting others to see what life could look like without them. And that is a powerful thing. Because when people can move freely, they can dream freely too. Conversations among youth across Africa have taken on a new energy. There's a buzz on social media filled with messages of hope and excitement. Young people are talking about road trips across the Sahel, about collaborative projects that span from West Africa to the Horn, about how easy it will be to build friendships that cross languages and landscapes. They are seeing themselves not just as citizens of their own countries, but as citizens of a larger, united Africa. It's as though the map has grown wider and yet more intimate all at once. They can finally see themselves in every corner of it. And this spirit of unity carries a quiet kind of healing too. So much of Africa's past has been marked by division, by outside powers carving lines that split people apart. Every visa lifted, every barrier removed is a step toward reclaiming that lost wholeness. It is a chance to say, asterisk, we are one people, and we belong to each other, asterisk. That message matters, especially for the younger generation, who are inheriting a world that sometimes tries to push them apart. Now, they can push back together. In villages and cities across Burkina Faso, the reaction has been filled with pride. People are walking with a new confidence, as though their country has become a beacon of what is possible. Taxi drivers chat about how more visitors might soon fill their streets. Traders in markets imagine their stalls surrounded by new faces and new laughter. And children listen quietly as their parents speak of an Africa where borders matter less than brotherhood. It's not just policy, it's a heartbeat. This gesture has also reminded people of something deeper. That unity isn't just about politics or treaties signed behind closed doors. It's about people. It's about the smile of a stranger who no longer feels like a stranger. It's about conversations that flow easily, without suspicion. And about sharing stories under the same sky without needing to justify your presence. That sense of ease can't be measured, but everyone who feels it knows it's priceless. Of course, there will be challenges ahead. There always are. But for now, what people feel most is possibility. The possibility of a continent where Africans can stand hand in hand, not divided by paperwork, but united by purpose. The possibility that a child born in Lagos might grow up believing they could work in Ouagadougou, study in Kigali, and start a family in Accra, without ever feeling like they had to cross a line to do it. That is the dream, and for the first time in a long time. It doesn't feel so distant anymore as the news spreads. It's as though a quiet celebration is happening across borders, one that needs no fireworks or parades, just the soft realization that something historic has begun. It is the sound of people breathing a little lighter, walking a little taller, and daring to imagine an Africa that moves together as one. When Burkina Faso announced its decision to drop visa requirements for all Africans, many people first thought about family reunions, about friendships rekindled, about the warm emotional side of movement. But very quickly another realization started to bloom. This could change everything for trade, tourism, and cultural exchange across the continent. It's like someone opened a door, and suddenly, fresh air is rushing in, carrying with it opportunities that had been locked away for far too long. Imagine a small business owner in Senegal who makes beautiful handmade jewelry. Before, trying to sell her work in Burkina Faso meant layers of paperwork, expensive visa fees, and exhausting waiting times that drained her spirit and her wallet. Now, she can simply pack her bags, hop on a bus, and walk into a market in Ouagadougou with confidence, knowing she belongs there. That kind of freedom lights a spark because when movement is easy, ideas start flowing, trade starts thriving. Tourism too begins to feel like something personal again. Africa is breathtaking, vast, and overflowing with beauty, yet too often, Africans themselves have been shut out from experiencing it all. Visa barriers made traveling within the continent feel like a luxury, not a right. But now, people from Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Mali, or Nigeria can plan a weekend getaway to Burkina Faso without thinking twice. Picture families taking road trips across golden savannas, young travelers dancing at music festivals they once could only watch online, or students exploring ancient cultural sites they had only read about in textbooks. This isn't just about vacations. It's about reclaiming the joy of knowing your own continent. It's of walking through history and nature and art that belongs to you. And as people move, cultures move with them. Food, music, languages, traditions, suddenly they're crossing borders just as easily as the people carrying them. A Malian griot might find himself playing at a wedding in Burkina Faso. A Ghanaian chef might open a pop-up in Ouagadougou. And Burkina designers could see their fabrics modeled on runways in Nairobi. These aren't just transactions. They're connections. They weave people together, creating threads of understanding that no policy could ever fully capture on paper. What's beautiful about cultural exchange is how natural it becomes when barriers fall away. It's like watching a river finally break free from a dam. Ideas mix. Art flourishes. Languages dance together. A Burkinabe child might grow up hearing Swahili songs on the radio, or tasting Ethiopian spices at a local market, or watching a Senegalese play at their neighborhood theater. And slowly, without anyone forcing it, a sense of unity starts to grow. People begin to see themselves in each other's stories. That's the kind of quiet magic that can reshape a continent from the inside out. On the business side, excitement is just as alive. Entrepreneurs are looking at maps with fresh eyes, spotting new routes, new possibilities, new partnerships. Logistics companies are already dreaming about smoother transport lines, fewer checkpoints, faster deliveries. Farmers are thinking about how much easier it will be to get their produce to new markets before it spoils. And traders who once felt boxed in by red tape now feel like the road is opening wide in front of them. It's not just economic growth. They feel like they can breathe again. Even the smallest moments carry this sense of renewal. A shopkeeper in Ouagadougou chatting with tourists from Benin, sharing jokes about football while showing them local crafts. A group of dancers from Kenya teaching traditional moves to a crowd of laughing children in a Burkina park. Or a quiet cafe where young minds from different corners of Africa sit together, swapping startup ideas over coffee. These aren't grand spectacles, they're simple. Human moments that bloom when people are free to move and meet and share, and maybe that's what makes this so powerful. The boost in trade, tourism, and cultural exchange isn't just about numbers or statistics. It's about people finally having the chance to reach for each other. It's about taking down the walls that kept dreams locked in separate boxes and realizing those dreams were always meant to be shared. There's a kind of electricity in the air now. A feeling that something new is starting to hum beneath the surface. Something that could reshape not just Burkina Faso, but the rhythm of Africa itself. When Burkina Faso announced that Africans could now enter the country without a visa, it felt like more than just a new policy. It felt like a handshake stretched across the entire continent. It was as if a single act had cracked open the door to something deeper. Something many people had only dared to dream of. True continental integration. Not the kind that's buried in policy papers or debated in distant halls, but the kind you can feel in your heart when you watch a border guard wave someone through with a smile instead of a stamp. For decades, the map of Africa has been carved up with invisible lines that weren't drawn by its own people. Those lines split families, fractured trade, and turned neighbors into strangers. Every border crossing came with a small knot of anxiety forms to fill. Money to pay, suspicion to endure. It made Africa feel fragmented, like a giant puzzle where the pieces had stopped trying to fit. And then with this single announcement, Burkina Faso quietly slid one of those pieces back into place. It didn't come with fireworks or parades. It's just a calm decision that said, "You are welcome here, because you are one of us." People across the continent felt it like a quiet wave. In Ghana, in Mali, in Nigeria, in Kenya, young Africans scrolled through the news on their phones and felt a little spark of pride, a little rush of possibility. They could see themselves packing a bag and going somewhere new without worrying if they would be turned away at the gate. It was more than convenience. It was dignity. It said, "You belong here." And belonging has a power that can't be measured in visas or passports. It's something that grows roots in the heart. This gesture might look small from far away, but up close it is heavy with meaning. It whispers of a future where African nations are not competing in isolation, but walking forward together, hand in hand. Where students from Ethiopia can study in Burkina Faso without hurdles. Where inventors from Rwanda can test their ideas in Dakar. Where young artists can tour the continent without getting tangled in paperwork. Integration doesn't just happen in government buildings. It starts in everyday lives. When people can cross paths and share ideas like they're passing bread across a table, there's something deeply emotional about imagining an Africa that moves as one. You can almost picture the map changing not in shape, but in spirit. The hard black lines between countries starting to fade, replaced by soft, living threads of connection. Markets humming with accents from every corner. Buses full of laughter rolling across once restricted borders. Friends from different nations meeting without even thinking about where one country ends and another begins. It's a feeling of home growing wider, wrapping around more people than ever before. Burkina Faso's decision carries that feeling like a torch. It says to the rest of the continent, "We trust you, and we see you as part of us." That trust matters, especially in a world where Africa is so often treated as a collection of separate fragments rather than a whole. Trust is what builds bridges. It's what turns policy into kinship. It's what makes a Senegalese farmer Or a Ugandan student, look at Burkina Faso, not as abroad, but as just across the street. For ordinary people, this step feels like hope taking a deep breath. Hope that one day the African Union's dream of free movement won't just live on documents, but in bus stations,